Jake Morrison pulled his old truck into the driveway and killed the engine. The Portland rain had finally stopped, leaving everything wet and shining under the streetlights. He grabbed his lunchbox from the passenger seat and headed toward his apartment building. It had been another long day at the engineering firm, fixing problems that nobody else wanted to deal with. That was his life now. Simple, quiet, normal. But normal felt wrong somehow. It had felt wrong for 5 years. Jake climbed the stairs to his second-floor apartment, fishing for his keys. He stopped at the door. Something was different. The air felt thick, like before a thunderstorm. The hair on his arms stood up. He touched the doorknob and pulled his hand back. It was warm, almost hot. He pushed the door open slowly. His living room was glowing. A soft blue light filled the space, pulsing like a heartbeat. In the center of his cheap furniture and scattered engineering magazines stood something impossible. Someone impossible. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with skin that looked like it was made of crystal and starlight. Her form was humanoid but elegant in ways that human bodies could never be. She wore robes that seemed to flow like water, and her eyes were large and golden, filled with an intelligence that made Jake's breath catch in his throat. "Hello, Jake," she said. Her voice came out perfectly in English, though he knew she wasn't actually speaking it. The translator implant she'd given him years ago was still working. "I have missed you so much." Jake dropped his lunchbox. It hit the floor with a bang that he barely heard over the pounding of his heart. "Zara," he whispered. Queen Zarathil of the Viridian Empire smiled. It was a gesture she'd learned from him during those 2 years he'd spent aboard her ship. Viridians didn't naturally smile, but she'd practiced until she got it right. "I promised I would return you home safely," she said, stepping toward him. "I kept that promise. But I never promised I would not come back for you." Jake's legs felt weak. He sat down hard on his couch, still staring at her. 5 years. 5 years since she'd brought him back to Earth after his abduction. 5 years since he'd walked away from the most incredible experience of his life. 5 years of pretending it had all been some kind of dream. "How are you here?" he asked. "Why are you here?" Zarathil moved closer. Her crystalline features showed something that looked like sadness. "I need you, Jake. My empire needs you. The galaxy needs you." "I'm just an engineer," Jake said. "I fix machines. I solve problems with gears and bolts and welding. What could I possibly do for an empire that travels between stars?" "You think in ways we cannot," Zarathil said. She sat down next to him, and the couch creaked under her weight despite her graceful appearance. "When you were with us, you solved problems that our greatest minds had failed to solve for generations. You did it without trying. Your human perspective sees solutions where we see only walls." Jake remembered. During his time on her ship, he'd been asked to look at various technical problems, things that the Viridians said were impossible. He'd solved 3 of them just by asking, "Why not try it backwards?" Or, "What if you made it simpler?" The Viridians had been amazed. Jake had just thought it was common sense. "What's happening?" Jake asked quietly. "What kind of trouble are you in?" Before Zarathil could answer, the apartment door burst open. Jake's sister Amy rushed in, her nurse's scrubs still on from her shift at the hospital. She stopped dead when she saw the glowing alien queen sitting on her brother's couch. "Jake?" Amy's voice was small and scared. "What is that?" "Amy, it's okay." Jake stood up, putting himself between his sister and Zarathil. This is Queen Zarathil. She's the one who brought me back 5 years ago." Amy stared. Her mouth opened and closed a few times. Then she grabbed a lamp off the side table like a weapon. "Get away from my brother." "Your sister has a brave heart," Zarathil said, standing up slowly. "You spoke of her often when you were with us, Jake. Amy the healer, Amy the protector. You talked about me? Amy looked at Jake. To aliens? I talked about everyone, Jake admitted. Mom, Dad, you, my friends. She wanted to know about human families, about Earth. Zarathil turned her golden eyes to Amy. I mean your brother no harm. I owe him my life and the lives of my people. He saved us once before, though he did not realize it. Now we face a threat far worse, and I must ask for his help again. What threat? Jake asked. Zarathil waved her hand, and a hologram appeared in the air between them. Amy gasped and dropped the lamp. The image showed space, but not the peaceful darkness Jake remembered from his time aboard the ship. This space was filled with massive structures, organic and wrong-looking, spreading across star systems like a cancer. The Nexus Collective, Zarathil said, an ancient enemy that consumes worlds. They turn planets into processing nodes for their hive mind. They have destroyed 17 civilizations in the past century. Now they are coming for us. Why can't you stop them? Amy asked, her fear replaced by curiosity. You have spaceships and weapons and all that advanced technology. Because they are perfect, Zarathil said sadly. They think in patterns. They calculate every possibility. They are efficient and logical and unstoppable. She looked at Jake. They are everything humans are not. Jake understood. You need someone who doesn't think in patterns, someone unpredictable. Yes, Zarathil said. The Nexus cannot comprehend chaos. They cannot understand inefficiency or intuition or creative leaps that defy logic. These are human gifts. Your gifts, Jake. This is insane, Amy said. She looked at Jake. You're not seriously considering this, are you? Jake looked at the hologram, at the spreading darkness that was consuming worlds. He thought about the 2 years he'd spent among the stars, feeling more alive than he ever had on Earth. He thought about coming home and feeling like half of himself had been left behind in space. How many people live in your empire? Jake asked quietly. 400 billion souls across 63 worlds, Zarathil said. And there are 17 other civilizations in our sector who will fall if we fall. Perhaps 2 trillion lives in total. Amy grabbed Jake's arm. You can't save the whole galaxy, Jake. You're one person. I know, Jake said. He looked at Zarathil. But I have to try. Zarathil's crystal face shone brighter, and Jake realized she was crying. Viridian tears looked like liquid light. I missed you so much, human. Let us go back. Together. Jake took a deep breath. His quiet, normal life was over. Maybe it had been over 5 years ago, and he'd just been pretending. He looked at his sister, at his small apartment, at the world he knew. Then he looked at the stars waiting beyond it. Okay, he said. Let's go back. Jake didn't sleep that night. He sat at his kitchen table while Zarathil explained everything about the Nexus Collective. Amy sat next to him, still in shock but refusing to leave. The hologram floated above the table, showing battle after battle. The Nexus ships moved like a swarm, coordinated and deadly. Every Viridian defense had failed. We have 3 months, Zarathil said. Maybe less. The Nexus is building a new command fleet. When it launches, my homeworld will fall. Then they will spread to every corner of the galaxy. 3 months to save a civilization, Jake muttered. No pressure. I cannot force you, Zarathil said softly. You have a life here, a family, a home. I have no right to ask you to risk everything again. There was a knock at the door. Jake checked his watch. It was 3 in the morning. He looked through the peephole and saw a man in a dark suit. Behind him were 2 more people, also in suits, government types. Jake opened the door. The man held up a badge. Jake Morrison, I'm Agent Crawford with the Department of Extraterrestrial Affairs. We need to talk. Jake let them in. Agent Crawford was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes that took in everything. She looked at Zarathil and her expression didn't change at all. Your Majesty, We've been monitoring unusual energy signatures in this area. I assume that's your ship cloaked above the building? Your detection systems have improved, Zarathil said. Impressive. We've had 5 years to study the technology you left behind when you returned Jake, Crawford said. She turned to Jake. You need to refuse her request. Excuse me? Jake said. We know why she's here, Crawford continued. One of our deep space probes detected the Nexus 6 months ago. We've been analyzing the threat. If you go with her, you'll be painting a target on Earth. The Nexus will trace you here. They already know about Earth, Zarathil said. They know about every world in this sector. You were safe only because you had not yet developed faster-than-light travel. But your recent experiments with quantum drives have made your species visible to them. Crawford's jaw tightened. Those experiments are classified. Not to beings who see across dimensional space, Zarathil replied. Amy looked at Jake. Is she saying Earth is already in danger? Yes, Zarathil said. The Nexus will reach your world in approximately 15 years if they are not stopped. They prioritize threats by technological development. My empire is the more immediate concern, but Earth is on their list. Then we have time to prepare, Crawford said. Time to build defenses. We don't need to risk our people in an alien war. 15 years is nothing, Jake said quietly. You can't build weapons to fight something like that in 15 years, not starting from where we are now. Crawford pulled out a tablet and showed Jake a series of blueprints. We've been reverse engineering Viridian technology. We're close to breakthroughs in energy shields and weapon systems. Jake looked at the designs and shook his head. You're copying without understanding. This shield design won't work. You've got the power flow backwards. Our scientists reviewed it thoroughly, Crawford said stiffly. Your scientists are thinking like humans, Jake said. This technology requires you to think like Viridians, and even if you got it right, you'd need 20 years of testing and development. You don't have that time. He stood up and paced the small kitchen. Earth's only chance is if the Viridian Empire survives. They're the strongest force in this part of the galaxy. If they fall, there's nothing between the Nexus and us. So we're supposed to send our people to die in someone else's war? Crawford demanded. I'm not asking Earth to send an army, Jake said. I'm going. Just me. No, Amy said suddenly. Everyone looked at her. Not just you. I'm coming too. Amy, no, Jake started, but his sister cut him off. You'll need medical support, she said firmly. I'm a trauma surgeon. If you're walking into a war, you'll need someone who can patch you up. Plus, someone needs to make sure you don't do anything stupid. This is not a negotiation, Crawford said. As citizens of the United States, I can prohibit you from leaving Earth for reasons of national security. Try it, Amy said. I'd love to see you explain to the press why you're stopping Americans from helping save the galaxy. Crawford looked angry but said nothing. Jake realized his sister had just outplayed a government agent. I need to make a call, Jake said. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in 2 years. Hello? A sleepy voice answered. Ben, it's Jake. I need you to come to my apartment right now and bring Kyle. It's important. Jake, it's 3 in the morning. This better be good. It's aliens, Ben, real ones, in my living room. There was a long pause. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Ben Hayes arrived in 15 minutes, with Kyle Chen right behind him. Ben was a former NASA scientist who'd helped debrief Jake after his return. Kyle was Jake's best friend from college, now working as a military strategist at a think tank. Both men stopped dead when they saw Zarathil. Sweet mercy, Ben whispered. It's real. It's all real. Kyle, always practical, looked at Jake. Why are we here? Jake explained everything. The Nexus, the threat to the Viridian Empire, the timeline to Earth's potential destruction. When he finished, both men were quiet. Ben spoke first. You need a physicist, Someone who understands the theoretical framework of their technology. I'm in. Are you insane? Crawford exploded. You have level 5 security clearance. You can't just leave the planet. Watch me, Ben said calmly. Kyle rubbed his face. I have a wife. Kids. I know, Jake said. I'm not asking you to come. But you need tactical support, Kyle said. Someone who understands combat strategy. He looked at his phone, at a picture of his family as his background. If the Nexus reaches Earth, my kids won't have a future. None of our kids will. He looked up at Jake. How long would I be gone? 3 months, Zarathil said. Perhaps less if we fail. Perhaps longer if we succeed, and you wish to help rebuild. Kyle nodded slowly. I need to talk to my wife, but if she agrees, I'm in. Crawford slammed her hand on the table. This is a mistake. You're all making a terrible mistake. Maybe, Jake said, but it's our mistake to make. Zarathil stood. We must leave within 2 days. My ship cannot remain hidden in Earth's orbit much longer. Your governments are becoming too skilled at detection. The next 48 hours were chaos. Kyle's wife, after a long night of tears and talking, agreed to let him go. Ben quit his job at NASA over the phone. Amy arranged for a leave of absence from the hospital, claiming a family emergency. Crawford followed them everywhere, trying to change their minds. Jake packed a single bag, his engineering tools, some photos of his family, a hoodie his mom had given him for Christmas. It didn't seem like enough to take to space, but what else did he need? On the second night, Jake stood on the roof of his apartment building. The city lights spread out below him, beautiful and familiar. Zarathil appeared beside him silently. Are you certain? She asked. I will not think less of you if you change your mind. I'm sure, Jake said. But I'm scared. Fear is wisdom, Zarathil said. It means you understand the danger. Why me? Jake asked. Why come all this way for one human? Zarathil was quiet for a moment. When you were aboard my ship, you asked me about my family. I told you that Viridians do not form emotional bonds like humans do. We respect each other, but we do not love as you understand it. I remember, Jake said. You told me that sounded lonely, Zarathil continued. I did not understand then, but after you left, I realized you were right. I was lonely. For 2 years, you showed me what friendship meant, what it meant to care about someone simply because they existed. She looked at him with her golden eyes. You gave me something my people had lost millions of years ago. I came back because my empire needs you, but also because I need my friend. Jake felt his throat tighten. I missed you too. Then let us save the galaxy together, Zarathil said, as friends do. The next morning, Jake, Amy, Ben, and Kyle stood in an empty field outside the city. Zarathil raised her hand, and her ship materialized above them. It was beautiful and terrible, a crystal structure that seemed to bend light itself. Crawford stood at a distance with a team of agents, watching. Jake gave her a small wave. She didn't wave back. Ready? Jake asked his team. No, Amy said, but let's do it anyway. The 4 humans walked toward the light, leaving Earth behind. The journey took 3 days, though time felt strange when traveling faster than light. Jake spent most of it staring out the viewing ports at the stars streaking past. Amy kept checking the medical bay, fascinated by Viridian healing technology. Ben couldn't stop asking Zarathil questions about quantum mechanics. Kyle studied tactical displays of Nexus battle patterns, his military mind already working on problems. When they finally dropped out of faster-than-light travel, Jake pressed his face against the viewing port and forgot how to breathe. The Viridian home world hung before them like a jewel. 2 suns orbited each other in the distance, bathing the planet in golden and blue light. But it wasn't the planet that amazed Jake. It was the cities. They floated in the sky, massive crystal structures that seemed to defy gravity. Bridges of light connected them, and ships moved between them like schools of fish. "It's beautiful," Amy whispered beside him. "Welcome home," Zarathil said softly to Jake. He realized she meant it. This place had been his home once for 2 years, and seeing it again made his chest ache with feelings he didn't fully understand. The ship docked at the largest floating city. As they walked down the ramp, Jake saw crowds of Viridians watching them. The aliens were all tall and crystalline, shimmering in shades of blue, purple, and silver. They stared at the humans with expressions Jake couldn't read. "They are curious," Zarathil explained. "Most have never seen humans before. You are legendary among my people, the small aliens who think sideways." "Legendary?" Ben laughed nervously. "We're just regular people." A Viridian male approached, his crystal form tinged with red, which Jake remembered meant anger or aggression. "Your Majesty, this is the High Council's great hope." "These tiny creatures?" "General Torvan," Zarathil said coolly, "you will show our guests respect." "Respect?" Torvan looked at the humans like they were insects. "While you waste time bringing primitives here, the Nexus builds its fleet. We should be preparing our defenses, not playing with pets." Kyle stepped forward. He was 6 inches shorter than the general, but didn't seem intimidated. "We're not pets. We're here to help. Unless you've already figured out how to beat the Nexus." Torvan's crystal form flushed darker red. "You dare speak to me like that, human?" "I dare because your queen invited us," Kyle said. "And from what I've seen of your battle reports, you need all the help you can get." For a moment, Jake thought Torvan might attack Kyle. Then Zarathil stepped between them. "Enough. General, return to your duties. I will present our guests to the High Council." Torvan gave a stiff bow and left. Zarathil led them through the crystal city. Everywhere Jake looked, he saw wonders, gardens that grew in midair, water that flowed upward. Technology and nature blended so perfectly that he couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. The High Council chamber was a massive dome filled with light. 12 Viridian elders sat in a circle, their crystal forms ancient and wise-looking. Zarathil introduced each human and explained why she'd brought them. The eldest council member, her form almost clear like diamond, spoke. "You claim these humans can help us where our finest minds have failed?" "I do," Zarathil said firmly. "Then let us test them," another council member said. "The shipyards have been damaged by Nexus raids. Hundreds are injured. Let us see if these human healers are as capable as you claim." Amy nodded. "Take me there." They brought Amy to a medical center that was chaos. Injured Viridians lay everywhere, their crystal bodies cracked and leaking light instead of blood. The Viridian doctors looked overwhelmed. Amy rolled up her sleeves. "Okay, I need someone to translate Viridian anatomy to me. Fast." For the next 6 hours, Amy worked. The Viridian medical technology was far beyond Earth's, but she realized that the doctors were so used to perfect healing methods that they didn't know what to do when those methods failed. Amy used human techniques: pressure to stop light leaks, improvised splints for cracked limbs, even old-fashioned sutures when the molecular bonders ran out. The Viridian doctors watched in amazement as Amy saved patient after patient using methods they considered primitive. But they worked. By the end of the day, Amy had reduced the critical cases by half. "Your sister has a gift," Zarathil told Jake. "Our doctors are learning from her already." Meanwhile, Ben was brought to the science complex. The Viridian scientists showed him the quantum shield problem. They'd been working on new defensive technology for years, but kept hitting the same mathematical wall. The equations were impossibly complex, requiring calculations that even their computers struggled with. Ben studied the problem for hours. Jake sat with him, helping where he could. Finally, Ben started laughing. "What?" Jake asked. "It's too complicated," Ben said. "They're using 17-dimensional math to solve a problem that doesn't need it. Look." He sketched out a simpler equation. If you collapse these dimensions and use basic quantum field theory, the answer is right there. The Viridian scientists looked at each other in shock. One of them ran the calculations. "It works. By the ancestors, the human is correct." "You were trying to be too perfect," Ben explained. "Sometimes the simple answer is the right answer." "Humans are strange," one scientist muttered, "but effective." Kyle was taken to the war room. General Torvan and his officers were studying Nexus attack patterns, trying to predict where they'd strike next. Kyle watched the displays for an hour without speaking. Finally, he pointed at the star map. "They're going to attack here, here, and here. Not where you think." "Impossible," Torvan said. "Those locations make no strategic sense." "They make perfect sense if you're thinking like a hive mind," Kyle said. "Look at the pattern. They're not attacking your strongest positions. They're attacking your supply lines. If they cut off these 3 routes, your fleet can't refuel. Your home world will be isolated." Torvan studied the map again. His crystal form flickered with something that might have been respect. "You see combat differently than we do." "We've had a lot of practice fighting wars," Kyle said sadly. "Humans are good at that." That night, Zarathil took Jake to her private chambers at the top of the floating city. They stood on a balcony overlooking the planet, the 2 suns setting in colors that Earth had no names for. "They doubt me," Zarathil said. "The Council, the military. They think I am foolish for believing in humans." "Are you?" Jake asked. "No," Zarathil said. "Already your team has proven their worth. Amy saved lives our doctors could not. Ben solved a problem our scientists had given up on. Kyle saw patterns our generals missed." She looked at Jake. "And you have not even begun your work yet." "What is my work?" Jake asked. "Ben does science. Amy does medicine. Kyle does strategy. What do I do?" "You do what you did before," Zarathil said. "You ask the questions we are too afraid to ask. You see solutions we are too rigid to see. You remind us that perfection is not always the answer." An alarm suddenly blared across the city. Red light flooded the balcony. Zarathil's form went rigid. "What is it?" Jake asked. "Nexus ships," Zarathil said. "They have found us." They ran to the war room. The displays showed 20 Nexus vessels dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They were massive, organic-looking things that made Jake's skin crawl just looking at them. "They are scanning the planet," Torvan reported. "They know we are here." "Why aren't they attacking?" Amy asked. Kyle studied the display. "They're learning. They're analyzing your defenses before they strike. They're a hive mind. Every ship shares information. They won't attack until they know exactly how to win." "Then we have time to prepare," Torvan said. "No," Jake said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. "We have time to confuse them." "What do you mean?" Zarathil asked. Jake pointed at the display. "They're expecting you to defend. That's what you've always done. But what if you didn't? What if you attacked them first, but not with weapons, with chaos?" "Explain," Torvan demanded. Jake's mind raced. "Send out ships, but have them do random things, fly in patterns that make no sense. Fire weapons at nothing, broadcast nonsense data, make them think you're malfunctioning. While they're trying to figure out what you're doing, you learn about them." The Viridians looked at each other confused. The idea made no logical sense. "It is stupid," Torvan said. "Exactly," Kyle said, getting it. "That's why it might work. They can't predict stupid because they don't understand it." Zarathil made a decision. "Do it. Launch the confusion protocol." For the next 3 hours, Viridian ships flew around the Nexus vessels, doing absolutely nothing useful. They spun in circles. They fired at empty space. They broadcast recipes and poetry and mathematical jokes. The Nexus ships didn't attack. They just watched, trying to analyze what was happening. And while they watched, Viridian scientists scanned them, learning their technology. Finally, the Nexus fleet withdrew, unable to process the illogical behavior. The war room erupted in cheers. Torvan looked at Jake with something like respect. The Nexus has never retreated before. You made them afraid of us. No, Jake said. I made them confused. That's even better. Zarathil put her hand on Jake's shoulder. You see? This is why I brought you home. Jake looked around at the cheering Viridians, at his team, at the stars beyond the windows. For the first time in 5 years, he felt like he was exactly where he belonged. Jake woke up to the sound of alarms. Again. It had been 6 weeks since the humans arrived, and the Nexus attacked almost every day now. Small raids, testing attacks. Each time, Kyle's unpredictable strategies kept them at bay, but everyone knew it was only temporary. He found Amy in the medical bay treating wounded soldiers. She looked exhausted. Another tough night? He asked. 3 dead, Amy said quietly. I couldn't save them. Their injuries were too severe, and I still don't fully understand Viridian biology. She wiped her eyes. I'm doing my best, Jake. But my best isn't good enough. You've saved hundreds, Jake reminded her. The Viridian doctors say you've taught them things they never knew about emergency medicine. It's not enough, Amy said. We need to end this war. Ben burst into the medical bay, his hair wild, eyes bright with excitement. I did it! Jake, I did it! Did what? Jake asked. The quantum shield. It works! Ben pulled up a hologram. We can create a shield that will protect an entire planet from Nexus weapons. It's beautiful. It's perfect. There's a catch, Jake guessed. Ben's excitement faded a little. Yeah, the power requirements are massive. We can only generate enough energy to shield 1 planet. Maybe 2 if we really push it. So we can protect the Viridian homeworld, Amy said. Or Earth, Ben said quietly. The 3 humans looked at each other. The weight of that choice settled over them like a physical thing. The council is meeting in an hour, Ben said. They're going to have to decide. The High Council chamber was tense. The 12 elders argued while Zarathil sat silent on her throne. General Torvan stood before them, crystal form flickering with agitation. The choice is obvious, Torvan said. We protect our home. Earth is not our responsibility. Earth helped us, one council member argued. We owe them protection. We owe them gratitude, another replied. Not suicide. If we protect Earth, our own world falls. Our empire ends. Is that a fair trade? Jake, Amy, Ben, and Kyle sat in the observer section, watching the debate. Kyle leaned over to Jake. They're going to choose themselves. I would too. In their position. Then billions of humans die in 15 years, Amy whispered. Our families, our friends, everyone we know. Zarathil suddenly stood. The council fell silent. We will protect neither world. Your Majesty, Torvan looked confused. We will not sit behind shields while the Nexus consumes the galaxy, Zarathil said. We will attack. We will destroy their command node. Without it, the Nexus fleet will fall into chaos. That's suicide, a council member said. The command node is protected by thousands of ships. It's never been breached. Because no one has tried the way humans would try, Zarathil said. She looked at Jake. Tell them. Jake stood up, his heart pounding. You've been fighting the Nexus the way you fight everything. With logic, with strategy, with overwhelming force. But that's what they expect. That's what they're designed to counter. And what would you have us do? Torvan asked. Fight them the human way. Kyle said, standing next to Jake. With chaos, with desperation, with tactics that make no sense. Ben pulled up a hologram of the Nexus command node. It was enormous, a living structure the size of a moon. The node coordinates the entire Nexus fleet. It's a biological computer, processing millions of calculations per second. It's perfect. Which means it's fragile, Jake said. Perfect systems can't handle imperfection. If we introduce enough chaos into that node, it will collapse trying to process it. You want to confuse it to death? A council member asked, incredulous. Yes, Jake said simply. It's insane, Torvon said. It's human, Zarathil replied, which is why it might work. I am authorizing the mission. General Torvon, you will lead the assault fleet. Kyle Chen will design the attack strategy. Jake Morrison will accompany you to the command node. No, Amy said immediately. Absolutely not. I have to go, Jake said to his sister. I'm the one who understands how to break perfect systems. It has to be me. Amy grabbed his arm. Then I'm coming too. If you get hurt, you'll need a doctor. Amy, don't argue with me, Amy said fiercely. We came here together. We see this through together. Zarathil nodded. It is decided. We leave in 12 hours. The next 12 hours were a blur of preparation. Kyle worked with Torvon's officers, designing an attack that was half strategy and half madness. Ships would fly in random patterns. Weapons would fire at irregular intervals. Some ships would retreat when they should advance. Others would attack when they should flee. It violated every principle of military tactics, which was exactly the point. Ben stayed behind to manage the quantum shield generator. If you fail, he told Jake quietly, I'll use every bit of power we have to protect Earth. I promise. We won't fail, Jake said, trying to sound confident. But if you do, Ben insisted, someone has to make sure Earth survives. Someone has to tell our families what we did here. Jake hugged his friend. Tell them we tried. The assault fleet gathered in orbit, 50 Viridian warships, their crystal hulls glowing with weapons energy. Jake and Amy stood on the bridge of the flagship with Zarathil and Torvon. Through the viewing ports, Jake could see the target in the distance. The Nexus command node hung in space, surrounded by a swarm of Nexus ships. Final chance to reconsider, Torvon said to Jake. This plan is madness. Madness is what we're good at, Jake replied. Zarathil gave the command. All ships, begin attack run, Chaos Protocol Alpha. The fleet surged forward. The Nexus ships moved to intercept. Their formations perfect and coordinated. Then the Viridian ships started doing impossible things. Some spun in circles. Others flew backwards while shooting forward. Ships fired at empty space, at each other, at random trajectories. From the outside, it looked like the Viridian fleet had gone completely insane. The Nexus ships hesitated. They couldn't predict the movements because there was no pattern to predict. Their hive mind tried to calculate probabilities and came up with errors. While they hesitated, the Viridian ships pushed deeper. It's working, Torvon said, sounding amazed. For now, Kyle warned. They'll adapt. We need to move fast. The flagship punched through the Nexus line, heading straight for the command node. Enemy fire raked their shields, but they held. Other Viridian ships drew fire away, sacrificing themselves so the flagship could get through. They reached the node's surface. It was alive, pulsing with organic energy. Jake could see structures that looked like circuits made of flesh, processing pods the size of cities, neural pathways bigger than rivers. Taking us in, Zarathil said. The ship dove into a massive opening in the node, flying through corridors of living tissue. It was like being inside a body. Jake felt sick just looking at it. There, Torvin pointed. The core! The command node's core was a sphere of pure energy, crackling with electrical storms. Around it, thousands of processing units worked in perfect harmony. Jake could hear a sound, a vibration that felt like it was coming from inside his head. The hive mind, thinking. How do we break it? Amy asked. Jake studied the core. It was beautiful in its perfection, every calculation balanced, every process optimized, every thought coordinated across billions of Nexus units. He had an idea, a terrible, wonderful idea. Zara, do you still have my old notebooks from when I was on your ship? Jake asked. Yes, Zarathil said, confused. Why? Get them, now. Zarathil retrieved a stack of battered notebooks. Jake had filled them during his original time aboard the ship, working on engineering problems. He flipped through pages until he found what he needed. Irrational numbers, Jake said. The Nexus thinks in patterns, in precise calculations. But what happens when you introduce numbers that never end, that never repeat, that can't be calculated perfectly? He connected his tablet to the ship's systems and started uploading his notebooks. Pages and pages of pi calculations, square roots that went on forever, mathematical paradoxes, quantum uncertainties, every imperfect, illogical, impossible to fully calculate concept he'd ever worked with. Broadcast this into the core, Jake said. Force the Nexus to process it. That will do nothing, Torvan said. It's just numbers. It's chaos, Jake replied. It's imperfection, and perfect systems can't handle imperfection. Zarathil didn't hesitate. She broadcast Jake's data directly into the command node's core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the core started to flicker. The perfect energy sphere stuttered. The processing units around it began working faster, trying to calculate the impossible numbers. But pi never ends. Square roots of prime numbers never settle. The paradoxes had no solutions. The Nexus tried harder. More processing power, more calculations. The entire node began to glow brighter as billions of computations ran simultaneously, trying to solve problems that had no solutions. It's working, Amy whispered. It's actually working. The core started to crack. Energy leaked out. The perfect sphere became irregular, ugly, wrong. The hive mind screamed, a sound that made Jake's ears bleed. The Nexus couldn't stop calculating. It couldn't stop trying to find patterns that didn't exist. We need to leave, Torvan shouted. The node is collapsing. They turned to run back to the ship, but a massive piece of the node structure fell, blocking their path. They were trapped. Another exit, Zarathil said desperately. There must be another way out. Jake looked around. There wasn't. The node was collapsing inward. And they were at the center. Kyle grabbed Jake's arm. It was a good plan, buddy. I'm glad we tried. Amy hugged Jake. At least we went down fighting. Zarathil looked at her human friends, her crystal form dim with sorrow. I am sorry I brought you here to die. Don't be, Jake said. This was worth it. The core exploded and everything went white. Jake woke up to the sound of beeping. Medical equipment. He was alive. His body hurt everywhere like he'd been hit by a truck, but he was alive. He's awake, Amy's voice. She sounded exhausted but happy. Jake opened his eyes. He was in the Viridian medical bay. Amy stood over him holding some kind of scanning device. Kyle sat in a chair nearby, his arm in a cast. Zarathil stood at the foot of the bed, her crystal form glowing brighter than he'd ever seen. What happened? Jake asked. His throat was dry. You saved us, Zarathil said. All of us. Torvan appeared in the doorway. His red-tinged crystal form had softened to a warm orange. The human wakes. Good. The council wants to give you a medal and an apology. An apology? Jake tried to sit up. Amy pushed him back down. For doubting you, Torvan said. For treating you and your people as primitives. You did what our entire military could not do. You destroyed the Nexus command node. How did we survive? Kyle asked. That explosion should have killed us all. I used my personal shield, Zarathil said quietly. It was only designed for one person, but I expanded it to cover all of us. It nearly failed. We were seconds from death when my guard ships pulled us from the wreckage. Jake looked at her. You risked your life for us. Of course, Zarathil said simply. That is what friends do. Over the next few days, reports came in from across the galaxy. The Nexus fleet had fallen into chaos without the command node. Individual Nexus ships were still dangerous, but they could no longer coordinate. The massive swarm attacks had stopped. Civilizations that had been on the verge of extinction were now able to defend themselves. The war wasn't over, but the tide had turned. Ben arrived at the medical bay with news. The Council has made a decision about the quantum shield. And, Amy asked. They're building 2 of them, Ben said. One for the Viridian homeworld, one for Earth. It will take longer, require more resources, but they're doing it. They say humanity has earned their protection. Jake felt something loosen in his chest. Earth would be safe. His family would be safe. There's more, Ben continued. The Galactic Federation wants to meet with Earth's leaders. They want to offer humanity membership. We're being invited to join the galactic community. Because we helped win the war, Kyle guessed. Partly, Ben said, but also because the other civilizations are scared of us now. They saw what 4 humans did. They're wondering what humanity could do if we really tried. They'd rather have us as allies than enemies. Smart, Kyle said with a slight smile. 2 weeks later, Jake stood in front of the High Council. His burns had healed. His body still ached, but the Viridian doctors said he'd make a full recovery. The council chamber was packed with Viridians, all there to witness the ceremony. The eldest council member stood. Jake Morrison, Amy Morrison, Ben Hayes, and Kyle Chen. You came to us as strangers. You leave as heroes. The Viridian Empire owes you a debt that can never be repaid. She held out 4 crystal medallions, each glowing with inner light. These are the shards of unity. They are given only to those who have saved our civilization. In 10,000 years of history, we have awarded them only 12 times. You are the first non-Viridians to receive this honor. Jake accepted his medallion. It felt warm in his hand and seemed to pulse with his heartbeat. We offer you more than medals, another council member said. We offer you a home. Stay with us. Help us rebuild. Help us learn to think as humans think. Jake looked at his sister, at Kyle, at Ben. They'd talked about this possibility. We're honored, Jake said, but we need to go home first. Our families haven't seen us in months. Earth is about to learn that aliens are real. They'll need people who understand both worlds to help them through the transition. We understand, Zarathil said, but this is not goodbye. It is merely farewell for now. Agent Crawford was waiting when the Viridian ship landed in the same field outside Portland. She'd brought an army of soldiers, scientists, and government officials. The ship had barely touched down before they surrounded it. Easy, Kyle called out as they walked down the ramp. We come in peace. Crawford stared at them. You've been gone for 2.5 months. Do you have any idea what chaos you've caused? We saved Earth, Amy said. You're welcome. You made first contact without authorization, Crawford continued. You participated in an alien war. You've fundamentally changed humanity's place in the universe. Yes, Jake said, and I'd do it again. Crawford studied him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. The President wants to meet you, all of you, and several hundred other world leaders. Apparently, the Galactic Federation has been trying to contact Earth for the past week. What did you tell them? Ben asked. That we need translators, Crawford said. That we need ambassadors. That we need people who understand both human and alien culture. She looked at Jake. Congratulations. You just got promoted to Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Federation. The next weeks were chaos. Jake and his team met with world leaders. They explained the Viridian Empire, the Nexus threat, the Galactic Federation. Earth's governments were scared, excited, and completely overwhelmed. Jake's phone rang constantly. News organizations wanted interviews. Scientists wanted to know everything about alien technology. Military leaders wanted tactical briefings. His small apartment became the center of a media storm. Through it all, Jake stayed in contact with Zarathil. They talked every day through the quantum communication device she'd given him. She told him about the rebuilding efforts, about how the Viridian military was adopting human-style tactics, about how Amy's medical techniques were being taught in universities across the Empire. "When will you return?" Zarathil asked one evening. Her hologram sat cross-legged in Jake's living room, looking almost relaxed. "Soon," Jake promised. "Earth needs a few more months to process everything. Then they'll need someone to actually go up there and represent them." "You will make an excellent ambassador," Zarathil said. "I'm an engineer," Jake laughed. "I fix machines. I'm not a diplomat." "You fixed the most broken thing in the galaxy," Zarathil said. "You fixed our hope. If you can do that, diplomacy will be easy." 6 months after returning to Earth, Jake stood in his apartment one last time. It was packed in boxes, ready for storage. Amy was staying on Earth to train the first human doctors who would work with alien species. Kyle was joining the new United Earth Defense Force as a strategic advisor. Ben had accepted a position at a joint human Viridian research station. Jake was going back to the stars. This time as Earth's official representative to the Galactic Federation. His phone buzzed, a message from his mom. "Proud of you, sweetheart. Be safe up there. And visit when you can." He smiled and replied, "I will. Love you." Amy knocked on his door. "Ready?" "Yeah," Jake said. He picked up his bag. It was the same bag he'd packed 6 months ago, plus a few photos, a letter from his parents, and Earth's flag. They walked to the roof where Zarathil's ship waited. Kyle and Ben were already there. Crawford stood to the side with a team of officials. "Remember," Crawford said, "you're representing all of humanity up there. Try not to start any wars." "I'll do my best," Jake said. "And Jake?" Crawford's expression softened. "Thank you for everything." He nodded and turned to his friends. "You guys sure you don't want to come?" "Someone has to stay and keep Earth safe," Kyle said. He pulled Jake into a hug. "But I'll visit. They're setting up regular transport runs now. And someone needs to train the next generation of human doctors to work in space," Amy added. She hugged her brother tightly. "I'm going to miss you so much." "Me too," Jake said. "But we'll talk every day, and I'll be back for holidays." Ben shook his hand. "Change the galaxy, buddy. Show them what humans can do." Zarathil's hologram appeared next to them. "It is time, Jake." Jake walked up the ramp into the ship. He turned at the top and looked back at Earth. His home, his friends, his family, everything familiar. But the stars were calling. The ship lifted off, climbing through Earth's atmosphere. Jake stood at the viewing port and watched his planet shrink below him. It was beautiful, small and blue and fragile. Zarathil appeared beside him, no longer a hologram but her actual crystal form. "Are you ready?" "No," Jake admitted. "But I learned something these past months." "What is that?" "That it's okay to be scared. That it's okay to not have all the answers. That sometimes you just have to take a leap and trust that you'll figure it out." Zarathil's form brightened with what Jake now recognized as happiness. "You have become wise, my friend." "I've become human," Jake corrected, "which means I make it up as I go." They entered the quantum drive tunnel, reality bending around them. Through the viewing port, Jake could see the Viridian home world appearing in the distance. Beyond it, the massive space station that housed the Galactic Federation Council. "Welcome home, Jake," Zarathil said softly. "The galaxy has been waiting for you." Jake smiled. 2 homes, 2 worlds, 2 lives that somehow fit together perfectly. "Then let's not keep them waiting," he said. The ship burst out of the tunnel into a sky filled with vessels from 100 different species. They were all here to meet Earth's ambassador, to meet the human who had saved them all. Jake took a deep breath. This was going to be interesting. Behind him, he heard Zarathil laugh. It was a sound she'd learned from him, a sound that Viridians had never made before humans taught them how. It was the sound of hope. "You know what's funny?" Jake said. "What?" "6 months ago, I was just a guy fixing machines in Portland. Now I'm Earth's ambassador to the galaxy." "You were never just anything," Zarathil said. "You were always extraordinary. You simply needed the right stage." The communication system chimed. A voice spoke in a language Jake didn't recognize, but his translator converted it instantly. "Earth vessel, you are cleared for docking at Federation Station. Welcome to the galactic community." Jake activated the communication system. "This is Jake Morrison, representing Earth. Thank you for the welcome. We're honored to be here." As the ship approached the massive station, Jake realized this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. The beginning of humanity's journey to the stars. The beginning of friendships with species they'd never imagined. The beginning of a future where Earth wasn't alone in the universe. And he got to be part of it. "Hey, Zara," Jake said. "Yes? Thanks for coming back for me, for missing me, for not giving up on us." Zarathil's crystal form glowed so brightly that Jake had to look away. "Thank you for being the kind of friend worth coming back for." They docked at the station, and Jake stepped into his new life. Ambassador, explorer, bridge between worlds, but most importantly, friend. The galaxy was waiting. And for the first time in his life, Jake Morrison was exactly where he needed to be.